All right, let's get some viewers' comments coming in as everybody at the TNA gets ready for us to go back to them. We've got another comment coming from Tabo saying, sadly, 22 years into democracy, there will be historical racial red tapes dividing South Africa, which of course affects the media. Another comment, Mongezi Tsotsi replying to Minister Zulu, saying, even the Americans don't know who the owners of Hollywood are. I suppose a comment after talking about ownership of the media. Lord Barrett, Stephen from 702, really raising some good points, and his answers are very fair and well constructed. All right, Lord Barrett, thank you very much for your comments there as well. Again, but on the opposite side, Maya Chlome is saying, Stephen Grootes is in denial at this point. Okay, no problem. These are what they're saying here. Sianda saying, no, this is just a conversation that's happened between viewers. I won't get into the conversation. We'd have to start at the beginning then. And then a final one here from I Am Tenyiko saying, what if the editors of newspapers are from opposition parties? Do you still expect a fair comment on the government? And that's one of those other ones there coming in. There's so many. I mean, there are hundreds of comments coming through today. So I wish we could get through them all, but let's go back to our TNA, which I think is about to round up in the next 10 minutes or so.
All right, Leanne, thank you very much indeed, and welcome back. We're in Sandton. We're starting to come down to the last few minutes of this conversation, and what I'd like to do is perhaps get 4 or 5 questions from the floor, and if you could ask them very briefly in 30 seconds each, and then get some quick responses and see how far we go. Let's start with table number 8, Kenny Kunene. Why the mutterings on the floor?
Because the Sushi King is here. I just want to, Ferial says the media is not an unelected opposition. Let me give her evidence. Last year, towards the campaign, towards the elections, the Mail and Guardian wrote to their writers, to their readers, do not vote for the ANC. Isn't that the job of the opposition? That's unelected opposition. Number 2, Stephen, you say there is no agenda in the media. There is, and you are one of those pushing it. It took Meg Maharaj to embarrass you on your show when you said that the Constitution demands that the president must go to Parliament 4 times. Meg Maharaj challenged you to point to the clause in the Constitution. You couldn't, because you don't read the Constitution. Instead, you said, the DA said so. You admitted on your show that your script is written in the Western Cape.
Okay, all right, Kenny,
I think you should also apologize to your listeners. Everyone that demonized the ANC and President Jacob Zuma fast-tracks their profession. Justice Malala built his career on demonizing the ANC and President Jacob Zuma. Not so funny Loyiso Gola built his jokes by ridiculing the ANC and President Jacob Zuma. It is a fact. You guys have an agenda. I am a victim of bias of lie and lies by the media. You guys need to transform. It's happening in Ghana. There is media regulation, journalist regulation. When you went to Ghana, taken by the by SAA, you took your licenses. You need to be regulated.
Okay, Kenny, thank you very much indeed. Next, we're going to table 5. We'll find Alex. Is it Mashilo? Mashito? Oh, you've spoken. Okay. Oh, yeah. Table 12. Surname Chang. If you could just, I can't read your writing. If you could just stand up, say your name. Thanks.
It's Melanie. Right. I have 2 questions. The first one is...
You have one. Choose one that's the most important.
Okay. My question is, what is the role of the media in gender equality when we see women, they lacking in leadership or representation in leadership? What is the role in media around this issue?
Okay, table 16, Zola, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mine is just to concur with some of the utterances that there's no objectivity in the newsroom, and I'm glad to hear that This debate was spoken about a couple of years ago. It was championed by Tami Mazwai, and the print media said he was paranoid. Now, SABC has got radio stations who are regulated but remain independent and objective. Why are we afraid of regulation?
Okay, all right. Quick responses, if you could, let's start with Stephen Motale.
Yeah, I wrote something that triggered part of this debate. And in that particular column, I presented evidence. I backed it with facts. I'm saddened by the attacks I get from my colleagues. Instead of engaging me constructively on the facts that I've presented, they have resorted to name calling and character assassination, something that we discourage political parties from doing. Our role is to be the watchdog, expose wrongdoing wherever it rears its ugly head. We must lead by example. We must also expose wrongdoing within our midst. I have presented evidence in my column. I came here today to back it up with further evidence. Truth is, we have failed the profession. We have failed.
Is this everybody?
I'm challenging them. It's happening. You can ask.
Every single newspaper, every single reporter has failed.
The mainstream media. I'm guilty, and they are equally guilty.
Okay.
And the only difference is, I'm man enough to say I did wrong.
All right. Okay, Stephen Grootes.
Yeah, I mean, I can't represent the media, and I don't think you can say, Stephen, that you represent the media necessarily. You know, we represent ourselves in this debate.
Stephen, you have just been embarrassed. Somebody just told you now that you were spreading DA lies on your show. It took Mark Maharaj. He challenged you. He said, show me that clause in the Constitution. And you confessed. You said it is the DA that says so. You were spreading DA propaganda. You claim, you tell me that you are saddened to hear things that are happening to other citizens. You are equally guilty.
We're running out of time.
Look,
if I may respond.
We are both students. Let's get into the sin bin. Let's apologize.
Gents, can we just respond?
I mean,
respond because we've got 30 seconds.
You do one interview where somebody knows more than you. It's going to happen to every radio and TV presenter at some point. And Kenny Kunene, I'm glad you're such a big fan of the Midday Report. You must have listened to that one interview at least 4 or 5 times to remember it so well. The thing is, you've got to be transparent. And in that case, where I was wrong, I was publicly rebuked and every single member of the audience heard it. That's the point of independent media, where someone can come on and do what Mac Maharaj did. And yes, Mac Maharaj and I have our own history, but you know, you can't say that means everything that I've done is wrong because I made one mistake. Otherwise we would have to say that every single person who makes a mistake is wrong. If you're saying that the media has failed us because we've made mistakes, well, you're aiming for perfection. I mean, you're saying then that everyone in every job has failed because nothing is ever perfect. We have to aim for the best possible media that we can do. And it's very important to say this again and again. Regulation by government will not make it any better. It will make it much, much worse.
All right. Okay, Ferial.
With love and respect to my colleague Stephen Motale of The Citizen, I ask myself, so if you are an editor and you have the influence and the power, why didn't you fire Martin Williams? Why didn't you fire the impimpis in your newsroom? Why didn't you clear out and make it the non-partisan, independent newsroom it's meant to be, rather than shouting at all of us now? Where I disagree fundamentally with Stephen is some of us covered the Squire's judgment correctly. Some of us covered the Constitutional Court judgment correctly. Some of us have been following the spy tape saga and the efforts by the President to not have his day in court for 10 years now. So don't paint all of us with that brush, because some of us have been doing our work and doing it properly. As to the question of women, I think it's a very important one. How do I see my responsibility? Every single week we do a rape map on page 2. I hope people here still read City Press and read it carefully, because that rape map is our responsibility, to track sexual and gender violence, to make sure that our media is a mirror of our societies. Equal numbers of women, equal numbers of men, giving women voice, giving them power, and the like. I could go on about the Media Appeals Tribunal. I think I've had my go. Yeah?
Okay. We'll come back to you, Stephen.
Well, a Media Appeals Tribunal, I think, is it's not going to pass muster in the Constitutional Court.
Yeah.
I think our court will go the way of the Canadian Supreme Court, which essentially says that a free and sometimes difficult and imperfect media is better than a media that is regulated or hemmed in. And people in this room who will be alive maybe in 10, 20 years from now, who will probably, hopefully, be in opposition also, understanding the value of a media, will then appreciate the fact that we have a free media in this country. I don't think a regulation will work. There's no guarantee that the regulation will improve the quality of our journalism. I think we're going to have to look into our own situations and fix what we see is wrong, what we see wrong in our journalism today.
Mr. Motsoeneng?
It is very important to fix it by regulations. Reason being, everywhere where we work, there are policies we are regulated. There are bodies that are regulated. Why not this one? That is the issue that we need to deal with. Because if we know that we are honest, we are loyal, why are you afraid to be regulated? Because to be regulated will be accountable. You will account for your sin. So in this case, it's just a free for one, for all. I mean, you mislead people and then you get free. I don't think that should happen, and I disagree with my friend here. And I'm surprised that even media, for the first time, they are coming on him. I have never seen print media taking each other. But in this case, I'm asking, what is the issue? The issue is these ones, because they portray themselves as they are positive, you know. So these ones, they don't want to be positive, print media. So they attack this one, New Age. But for me, what is critical? We should not run away, because I think we are all equal as citizens. And if there are bodies that are regulated, media also needs to be regulated. Okay. And media can't regulate itself. Because the issue here, you have ombudsman. Who pays the ombudsman? It's media itself. Who appoints? It's them. So it can't be right from where I'm sitting. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to women, you can see here, there is no gender here, as we are sitting. I think the lady was asking, what is the role of media? What we need to do is to make sure that women occupy this space, and women influence the direction of the country. And you know, women are very strong in nature. They won't be afraid to be regulated.
We're going to have to start wrapping this up, but one question that's been burning on my mind, and perhaps just if we can start to conclude this conversation, is, you know, I keep hearing about this objectivity. You know, my first trip to Ghana, I was amazed that in the morning you could buy anything up to 30 newspapers, and it was, each paper was unashamedly pro one particular party, pro one particular view, and consumers of those media can choose. I don't want to buy this paper because it is pro this. Maybe is it a bad thing that we have all these different voices that do push a certain agenda? Because I think there seems to be, and I'm asking you now, are we assuming that our people are stupid, that they can't make up their own minds about what's going on around them, that they are being influenced by you guys, by the things that you read? I wonder if that is the truth. Maybe write what you write, they're going to read it, they're going to make up their own mind and make their own choices. And it seems to be happening in other parts of the world. And I wonder if we aren't overcooking this here by suggesting that what we write sets the country on a perilous path, people are not stupid and they'll make up their own minds.
Okay. There's nothing wrong fundamentally with a particular media group supporting a political party of its choice. The problem I have is if the same media group says we are going to be objective, we are going to be apolitical, yet they pursue the agenda of a certain political party. The best thing to do is to be honest and tell your audience that, declare it.
But can't the audience figure it out anyway?
No, people are not stupid.
So they figured it out, so it doesn't matter.
No, but that is dishonesty that I'm talking about. And Ferial, in 2012, you sent a long letter to President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Dudu, in which you apologized for publishing the Spear. I was with you in Washington, D.C. in June. This is the hypocrisy that I want to highlight. You flew to Washington, D.C. with that same picture that you apologized for here. And you showed it to a global audience where powerful editors from all over the world had gathered. This is the hypocrisy I'm talking about. You apologize here, and then you fly out to Washington to go and to do the same thing that you apologized for.
All right. Ferry, you're going to reply now, but another question I want to ask you as senior people in the news space. Why do we have this us and them kind of relationship with politicians and the media? It seems as if, I'm listening to this conversation today, I'll hear one half of the room clap at certain points and another sort of nod in agreement at other points. And it seems as if, you know, the guy at home, the consumer, really is one we should be focused on. But there seems to be this, we're going to kill each other at some point, the media and the press. How did we get to this point, and how do we get out of it? Moegsien?
Good question. I think I spoke earlier about a need for a re-engagement, and I think
You've got 30 seconds to answer.
This conversation is very, very important. I also, in my piece, spoke about a new kind of journalism. Of course, it's been misread to mean that I'm talking about sunshine journalism. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how do we help this society, this country of ours, in its developmental phase, to begin to carve out a better future. Somebody spoke about how are we contributing to achieving the objectives of the NDP? And I think that's maybe the food for thought that this kind of debate kind of has delivered. And going forward, for us to kind of continue to debate, what kind of press do we want to be in what kind of society?
All right. Ferial?
I take that presentation many places because I take it to remind myself of the perils of self-censorship. And I do feel that I exist in a time of a heightening rhetoric against media freedom that is very, very difficult to work in. And that you've got to keep strong through that, and that the realities of self-censorship are very real for me. That's why I do that, that presentation. As to the objectivity debate, I do think that one's gone out of the window a good 10 to 15 years ago already. Is that our responsibility to country and to public is to be balanced, to present as many views as possible, to recognize aspiration, and to be the host for that aspiration in the best ways that you can be.
Stephen, does this all matter anyway? Because we now have social media, and they are talking about what they want to talk about. There was a time where only the newspapers, only the TV could set the agenda and could actually communicate what people knew or did not know. And if it wasn't in the paper, it didn't exist, it didn't happen. We're past that now. So is this an intellectual debate that helps us pass the time of day? Because, you know, when the ANC Women's League had their elections, 12 midnight, I went to their Twitter page to find out who'd won. I wasn't waiting for the newspaper or news bulletin. That's not what's happening anymore. So does this matter, this conversation, when the consumers have taken over from where I'm looking?
It matters hugely because what you do need and what there is still a demand for and a need for is context, explanation, interrogation, and analysis. Otherwise, the facts are meaningless. Batapile Dlamini beats Angie Motshekga. What does that mean for who could be our next president? That's what a journalist, an informed, knowledgeable, analytical journalist can tell you, which someone on social media, they might be able to tell you if they're particularly informed. But the job, in a way, of a good, proper, in my view, journalist is to be able to explain what this means for the country. The other thing is that if you look at Twitter, I mean, people are going to talk more about Kim Kardashian or something like that literally all day, when we need to be talking about the currency, the crisis in mining, the economy. And just to get back to why is there so much antagonism at the moment? And I think this antagonism is simply because we are in a bad news situation at the moment. We have parastatals that are in chaos, a mining industry about to lose 11,000 jobs according to the NUM. We have an economy that is slowing, a currency that is weakening, and load shedding, load shedding, load shedding. And as a result of that, the people who are in charge are going to feel attacked. I understand that. I don't think it's an attack. I think it's just reporting. And that, in a way, I think is part of the root of the sort of feeling that we're seeing here.
All right, so Stephen, there was something I wanted to ask you now, and it's just escaped me. It's captured here. And the other thing that we didn't talk about properly, and I think if we could just in the last few minutes, is transformation in the media. We haven't really spent a lot of time on there. What does a transformed media look like, and what difference will it make in 2015 going forward? Is it more women like Ferial as editors? Is it breaking down these monopolies and getting different players into the game? What does a transformed media look like, and what difference will it make, Mr. Motsoeneng?
For me, it's to get right people in certain positions, especially strategic positions. Sometimes I have my own view about black people, because some of them, they are black, but they are white inside. Some white are white, but they are black. What I'm just saying is, in some of where you find that people who are black are in charge, there is no transformation at all. We should not run away from that. So we as black people also, we need to look upon ourselves and make sure that there is transformation. When you come to SABC examples, you know there is a transformation. We are not apologetic. We just appoint women. We just appoint them. We don't appoint them because they are women, because they have expertise and skills, and they are able to perform that duty very well. What we are still lacking, to be honest, is to make sure that ESCO, when the CEO is there, at ESCO level, is where we are saying we also need white people, because it can't be blackie only. Because you'll reverse, we are going back to apartheid if you do that. That is the challenge that we are facing, and we are dealing with that issue very well. But also for me, transformation, it's a difficult one, but simple one. Because transformation is how people take their issues daily. You know, at work, how do they look at the country? Do they look people as, especially black people? You know, most of the time when you read especially print media, where there is a black person in charge, for them there is chaos. They portray as if black people can't run big organizations. If you come to the ESCOM, the issue that is raising about load shedding, what caused load shedding? You can't blame the current government example. You need to do your own research. I mean, the old technology that is there, it has huge implication. How many people are getting electricity? Those are the issues that media need to deal with, not just to lambast the government about load shedding, because there are issues behind what is happening now. So that is where I have a problem, especially about my friend here, Stephen, because I think you need to go beyond whatever that you are going, not just to focus on government, because the problem is not about government. The problem is citizen. All of us, we need to own up. All of us, we need to contribute. But also I think it is very important to come to the issue of media. There is no transformation here. SABC, there is transformation. And I'm going to tell you, when all these journalists, they come for press conference, they are just afraid to come like Motale. They will tell you, you know what, we have been informed to take this angle. which means that is propaganda. The editors, they have already told you, you go there, this is the angle. Even if you can try to explain, they will never take that angle because their mandate is to make sure that they pursue this agenda of print media. So for me, you need more transformation in print media.
Moegsien, isn't transformation, and I'm going to get your point, the New Age came into being, newspaper, and the question I have is, why is there this constant thing about transforming media that exists? Why not create new media, and if your truth is the truth, they will fall away, they'll disappear because people will follow you with the truth. Is that too simplistic?
Well, we've got a great constitution, and we're talking about transformation and why newspapers like New Age exist. The question for us as editors and journalists is, over the next 50 years, as we build this country, what kind of media would we want? How do we want to play that very, very important role in terms of Article 16 of the Bill of Rights? It does mean that we're going to have to re-look what we're doing at the moment. How do we train and prepare the new generation coming through about the constitutional role that they have to play? The New Age was a refreshing kind of development in South African media, in that it decided to be positive about the country. Its essential view is that the glass is half full rather than half empty, and that we will be searching for those stories where we will be very happy to say, I looked at the lead in one of our 6 editions that we published last week, which said more money to be spent on a hospital in Northwest. Now for the hard-bitten journalists in a city like Johannesburg, that is not a lead story. In the New Age, it makes it as a lead because it's important to those people who are going to attend those clinics in Moegsien or Rustenburg and who wait for long hours for their medicine. It's a great development. More money to be spent on health facilities in Northwest. So it's a different kind of approach, but there's obviously room for many, many other voices in opposition to what the New Age is doing in terms of social media. And I think that's what our democracy should be all about, a vibrant, multiple media kind of situation where everybody has a say, and as you say, correctly, that our readers and our viewers next year, when they go to the election, would have been so well informed that they can make a proper decision when they go into that voting booth.
Well, Ferial, people might say that you're a perfect example of what transformation can do, woman of color, and you're an editor of a major national newspaper. And I'm just wondering, what difference has that made that you've been able to sit in that chair?
So I think we on this panel are like yesterday's news. So do you know Netflix, obviously? Yes. I think the future of media is going to be like Netflix. It's going to be on demand, it's going to be elsewhere, it's going to be driven by technology, and you see the exciting shoots of it already. So the Association of Independent Publishers, exciting things happening there, people starting up their own little things using the lowered barriers to entry. Television, I think, is going to explode once we cross the digital divide, and I think that's going to fundamentally change the power and shift how the media is understood. It's going to be far more owned and watched and read by people who want to read it. So I think this debate and the panel, with respect, is kind of 20th century stuff.
So you've said that journalism is going to be the thing of philanthropes in the future, isn't it?
I do think that.
Yeah.
So I think the commercial model will not be able to sustain independent journalism. It's increasingly going to be sustained by the taxpayer, SABC, and then for independent journalism by philanthropists who begin to fund newsrooms so you get the kind of quality that you're looking for.
All right, Stephen, I'm going to come to you just now, but I'd like to go to Valen, who's on the floor, and she's got a special guest that she wants to have a chat with.
Yeah. I certainly do. Thank you very much, Peter. Yesterday we marked 3 years of the Marikana massacre, and a lady whose name has come up whenever we look at the commission that has been investigating. That is Ria Piecha, our police chief. She is sitting here, and it's quite an interesting guest to have here, because I wanted to find out exactly why she felt it so important to also be a part of this and to be here and attend this business briefing. A very good morning to you. Ms. Piecha, why did you feel it was important for you to come and be a part of this conversation?
As a citizen, the debate that is taking place here affects me too. And indeed, I care about our nation building. We should have the capacity as a nation to tell our stories objectively, the good and the bad. But clearly, what I'm observing is that we are telling our stories in a biased fashion. And it is indeed responsible of us so that our children's children could know that through our responsible conversations as media, as citizens, as leaders, we shaped our country by telling our stories in a manner that we should. And indeed, issues of accountability, responsibility, independence are intertwined and are indivisible. They have to be taken into that account. There is room for accountability by the media, and there is room for independence, and those two things are mutually inclusive.
Do you feel of late you've been fairly treated by the media?
I will tell my story at some point, and I'm sure the SABC and those who are willing to hear about objective storytelling about what happened would be able to hear my story.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much. That's the police chief, Ria Piecha, also just offering her insights here. And I suppose the main theme that's come out of the entire morning, Peter, has been whether or not South African media, and when we look at it as an entirety, is in fact fair or not fair, and whether they are in fact objective.
All right, Valen, thank you very much indeed. And I've got to say, I've been a victim as well. You know, stories happen in the papers. You wake up on a Sunday morning and you say, oh my goodness, I'm in the paper. And the journalists say, we tried to get hold of Peter Ndoro, but he was unavailable for comment. And I didn't get a phone call from anybody, not even a voice message. Stephen, what is happening? I think sometimes we are cheating a little bit as journalists, and we are taking chances. And I'm just wondering, how do we clean that up?
You know, there are a few things. Firstly, as I say, you know, people are going to make mistakes. I can't speak on behalf of all the media. That sort of thing shouldn't be happening if no attempt was made to contact you. Often, I've found that people in situations try and avoid being contacted. I'm not saying that that was you at all, but we know that it happens. Hlaudi, I do need to, if I may, just query you on something. I mean, you say that journalists come to press conferences and have been told to take a particular line. You know, you haven't presented any evidence of that, and I don't think that that is necessarily the case. I really, really strongly disagree, and I'd like to see evidence of that, if that exists. And then there's a debate around, and this gets interesting, because you in a way are suggesting that there's transformation. There are now editors who are not white, there are black editors in charge of organizations, and your complaint, and other people have made a similar complaint, is that the organization hasn't transformed. I mean, isn't that just because the editor disagrees with you? Isn't that why it hasn't changed in the way you want it to change? Because they just simply disagree with you?
You see, Stephen, you need me to give you a lecture, two of us. You see, what you are saying here is not the issue of, I mean, I can't just talk from my head. We always have press conference. I know what is happening in print media, but I can't expose this journalist like you can't expose your source. But those are the truth, where people are saying this is what is happening within print media. There are so many crises in print media, but people are quiet. There is no transformation in print media. In some of media, you don't even allow the unions to operate. There are so many of those media, whether it's print, whether it's broadcasting. Go and do your research because you are a journalist. Go, you'll find it, and then we'll come with the answer.
So I must do your research for you. Okay.
All right, Stephen, you talked about the shareholders of Prime Media, Stephen Grootes. Has that changed the way the station operates? Because we're talking about media ownership earlier on, monopolies and so on and so forth. Has the change in ownership, the complexion of the owners, changed the way that the station operates?
You know, all media organizations, all reputable media organizations that are commercial, in other words, take advertising, all have walls between the people who run the advertising, who get the advertising, if you like, and editorial. Prime Media is no different. That's exactly how it is done. And that means that, you know, when it comes to a wall between what the owner, the way the owner would like things to operate, as far as I know, and I'm just one of the workers at Prime Media, I'm not a manager in any way, no one phones from head office and says, do this. That's not how it is done. There are walls between people. There are people who are editors. So the job of any kind of interface there would be editors, but there is a big wall in all reputable media organizations between the people who do the advertising and the people who are in charge of the money, in charge of the business, if you like, and the people who actually do the editorial, in my case, go on air. There's a huge wall, and that's the way it has to be.
All right, Stephen Motale, you're the editor of The Citizen now. What have you done to transform your space?
When I took over that publication in November 2013, it was titled a SAPA newspaper. We were taking so much of our content from SAPA and otherwise. Now, the first thing that we did, we embarked on a massive recruitment campaign. And we employed several journalists, most of who are black. Now, that's the type of transformation that we have embarked on. And these are youngsters that are very, very, very hungry to make a name for themselves. Now, you have a look at The Citizen today. I think even you, Peter, will back me up that it's a completely new publication.
Okay, all right, so now we've got 5 minutes left, which means that I need to wrap this up now and leave our viewers with some thoughts, our audience with some thoughts. Topic is the state of the media and state of transformation. There were thoughts that you came into this conversation with. We've had this discussion, and perhaps we can start now concluding. Have you moved? Are you still where you were when we started? Let me start with you, Mr. Motsoeneng.
No, maybe, Stephen, the first evidence is there, Motale. That is the first evidence. You were saying I should give you evidence. Evidence is next to you. Okay? For me, I still believe that we need radical transformation. And we should not be apologetic. I know Lumko is sitting there, and I'm calling all of them, those who believe in me and them, to make sure that we lobby for journalists to be regulated so that they take accountability. We should not be apologetic. And also, if you look at the newspapers most, they are selective. There is a report, whatever report, they go for what they want. They don't go into details of the report and analyze accordingly, because they have already taken their own view.
I'm going to have to move us along, unfortunately, but you're saying that you haven't moved and regulation is a must. Make sure that we have an accountable journalism.
I think media must use this opportunity that was presented today for this conversation to continue and to be sustained over the next few weeks and months, because I think it's an extremely important debate about what do we do to fix our newsrooms, to make sure that we don't write a story about you pit Ndoro without having your comment, that we base our stories on single sources, that we ignore the universal ethics of balance and fairness in our coverage. Last point from my side is the training and the proper training of the new cadre of journalists coming through. At the new age, we probably the only company now with an academy, an internal academy. This year we've trained 32 new journalists already. We're about to have another intake of 16. So this year we will produce 48, hopefully new journalists who will be entering the profession.
With the right mindset.
With a mindset that is saying, how do we make our contribution to building the country, while at the same time being that watchdog.
Ferial, 30 seconds.
So I think our journalists and our media are a golden asset of our country, and perhaps that's what I come away learning even more today. So I start my day reading 7 newspapers, and in there I find absolute gems. So it can be that Moegsien takes me to the Northern Cape, where nobody else really goes to. It can be the humour of the Times. It can be Soweto's Nyaupe, excellent campaign against Nyaupe. I think our media is a greater asset than we give it credit for. I think it's more transformed, but obviously there's a long walk to freedom. It takes a while. Huh?
Okay, Stephen Grootes.
I'd like to thank Moegsien for starting all of this. I've learned from you, Moegsien. I really have, and particularly this morning, so thank you. There's some things that I'm going to think about differently as a result. But don't make that my main message. Regulation is dangerous. Regulation by government is dangerous. And people who say that they want to regulate have only one thing in mind. They want to control the media, and that's what we have to be aware of.
Okay.